Close your eyes and picture this. You're safe in bed, the blanket warm around you, the world outside wrapped in silence. The only sound is your own breathing, steady, calm. And then something shifts. One star, just one, begins to shimmer differently. Not like the others, but as if it's alive. Its light seems to pulse, almost like it's breathing. You lean closer to your window, wondering why you can't look away. And then, clear as your own heartbeat, you hear it. A voice. Soft, deliberate, speaking only to you. I have a secret just for you. Your chest tightens, not in fear, but in wonder. 1,000 questions rush through your mind. Who is speaking? How can a star have a secret? And why does it sound like it's smiling? Would you listen? Would you follow that voice into the night? Because what if I told you the night sky keeps every wish you've ever made? Even the ones you whispered only once. Even the ones you've long forgotten. That's the secret Elena was about to learn on a night when the stars leaned closer than ever before as she sat up in bed, staring at a single flickering star, asterisk. What if the night sky could speak? What if, while you lay in bed tonight, wrapped in your favorite blanket, the stars leaned in closer, closer than they have in 1,000 years, and whispered your name? That's not something you expect to happen. It's the kind of thing you read about in old fairy tales, or hear from a storyteller beside a glowing fire. But for Elena, it happened on the most ordinary night of her life. The day had been quiet. The wind had moved lazily through the trees, and the soft scent of pine and earth had drifted through her open windows. She had spent most of the afternoon curled up with a book, occasionally glancing outside as the sun sank lower. By the time night arrived, the world seemed washed in silver. The moon hung low, so low it looked like it was resting on the tops of the dark forest trees beyond her house. The air was cool, the kind of cool that makes you want to breathe deeply and fill your lungs with freshness. Elena's little bedroom window framed the night like a picture. Beyond the glass, the stars sparkled against a deep, velvety sky, each one steady and sure, except for one. One star seemed different. She noticed it because of the way it shimmered, not like the slow twinkle of the others, but in a quick, deliberate flicker, as if it wanted to be seen. Elena tilted her head. That's strange, she thought. She pulled her blanket tighter around her shoulders, the fabric warm against her skin. Her breathing slowed as she stared at that flickering star. And then, without warning, the stillness of her room shifted, just slightly. It was the smallest change, the kind of thing you might miss if you weren't paying attention. The shadows in the corners seemed softer, the night air quieter, almost expectant. And then she heard it. Her name, Elena. It was not loud, not even close. It was softer than the sound of leaves brushing together in the breeze, softer than the hush of her own breath. But it was there, clear enough to make her heart skip a beat. She froze, listening. Elena. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for the source. The window was open just a little. Maybe it was the wind playing tricks, or a neighbor calling from the path below. But no, there was no movement, no footsteps, no sound except for the whisper of that voice. Her gaze returned to the strange flickering star, and in that moment, she could swear it pulsed in time with the sound. Flicker, whisper, flicker, whisper. She swallowed. Who's there? She whispered into the dark, almost embarrassed by the sound of her own voice in the stillness. No one answered at first. The night stretched on, holding its breath. Then, the flickering star seemed to tilt, just slightly, as if leaning toward her. "I have something to tell you," it breathed. The words were like the sound of water over smooth stones, soothing yet urgent. "But you must come outside." Elena's first thought was that she must be dreaming. She pressed her hand against the wooden frame of her bed, feeling its solidness. Awake, definitely awake. She considered ignoring it, pulling the blanket over her head, and letting sleep carry her away. But something about the voice stirred a deep, ancient curiosity inside her. It was the same feeling she had when she was a child, and her grandmother told her there was a hidden place in the forest that only appeared under the light of the full moon. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. Outside, she thought. The night beyond her walls was quiet and vast, the kind of quiet that could either comfort you or make you feel very small. The voice spoke again, softer this time. "Hurry, before the night changes." Elena took a long breath, feeling the coolness of the air seeping through the window. The scent of pine was stronger now, as though the forest itself had moved closer. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, the floorboards cool beneath her feet. The old wood creaked gently as she stood. She reached for her shawl, a soft, worn piece her grandmother had knitted long ago, and draped it over her shoulders. One last glance at the flickering star, and then she began to move toward the door. Outside, the night waited, and somewhere above her, in that endless sea of silver, a secret was ready to be told. Elena eased open the door, and the night seemed to breathe in, as if it had been waiting for her. Cool air brushed her cheeks. The path from her porch to the clearing was a soft ribbon of moonlight, pale and inviting, edged by quiet shrubs that wore silver at their tips. The world moved slowly. The leaves did not rustle. They listened. The crickets held a steady rhythm, a small percussion under a grand, silent sky. In that calm, Elena felt two things at once: an anchor of peace and an electric brightness running through her like a new pulse. Outside, the voice had said, and there she was. She stepped off the last wooden stair, her slippers sinking into the gentle give of the grass. She could smell the forest, pine resin, damp bark, and the faintest sweetness of night flowers that opened only when the moon rose. It was a scent that lived somewhere in her memory, tucked away with lullabies and lantern-lit stories her grandmother once told. Halfway down the path, Elena stopped and looked up. She found the flickering star easily now. It was brighter than before, not larger, not closer, just more present, as if she were no longer seeing with her eyes alone, but also with some quiet, long-sleeping part of herself awakening. "Why me?" she whispered, the question rolling out of her like a leaf drifting over still water. For a moment, there was only the soft breath of the night. Then the answer came, not as a sentence, but as a knowing. "Because you listened." It felt like a hand on her shoulder, reassuring, gentle, guiding. The knowing carried a calm weight, as though it had always been true, and she was only now remembering it. Elena's own footsteps sounded new to her, each one a small promise. She followed the moonlit path as it curved toward the clearing, where the trees thinned and the sky widened. As she walked, the sounds of the world arranged themselves around her. A distant owl called once. A tiny stream murmured somewhere to her right. The heady perfume of wet earth rose and settled. It all felt arranged, like a stage prepared for a quiet, secret performance. A soft breeze gathered and moved through the branches, parting them just enough to let her pass. As it brushed her shawl, the knitted fabric warmed, as if holding the last daylight in its threads. She thought of her grandmother's hands, steady, patient, looping yarn, shaping warmth. She felt those hands again now. Only the hands were the air and the sky and the night itself, knitting her into this moment. At the edge of the clearing, Elena paused. The grass here was velvet, each blade tipped with dew that held tiny moons inside it. When she stepped forward, the dew didn't wet her feet. It was as if the night had pulled a veil aside just for her. The star, her star, flickered with a slow, deliberate grace, then steadied, then flickered again, a language she didn't yet understand and yet felt she could. Elena, the voice breathed, closer now, as if spoken into the shells of her ears. You are not alone. Her chest rose and fell, not from fear, but from awe. The words were simple, and yet they filled the clearing, nestled into the spaces between her ribs, settled at the base of her throat. Not alone. She let the idea rest there. What do you want to tell me? She asked, and the shape of her question sent ripples through the quiet, as though it had been dropped gently into a still lake. To remember, the voice replied. To remember what you knew before the world became too loud. To remember what all hearts once knew. Elena closed her eyes for a heartbeat and opened them again. The sky seemed to lean closer, the way a friend leans in when they share something precious. Then I'm ready, she said, surprised by how certain she felt. Show me. The star brightened once, the way a candle flares before it settles into a steady glow. The clearing held its breath. A path of pale light formed in the sky overhead, thin as a thread at first, then widening, unraveling like silk spilled across dark velvet. Look, the voice said, and Elena lifted her gaze as the invitation unfolded above her like a door opening onto a quiet, miraculous room. The night did not change quickly. It changed slowly, with the care of someone turning a page, afraid they might tear it. And as the page turned, the story began. It started as the faintest shimmer, a silver haze that gathered between the stars. Then the haze thickened and shaped itself, as if unseen hands were weaving strands of light together. Elena watched as constellations loosened their strict patterns and spilled into motion, lines bending, dots connecting, pictures awakening. Before the noise, the voice murmured. There was listening. Scenes unfurled above her. She saw a shoreline from long ago, waves moving like sleeping breath onto a dark beach. On the sand, people stood with their heads tipped back, their arms open as if to say, "We are here." The stars answered, brightening, dimming, shifting, painting routes across the sky. Elena understood without words. The people were asking for guidance, and the sky was giving it freely. The light changed, softening to gold. A valley appeared, green and quiet, with a ribbon of river threading through it. Farmers watched the heavens while they planted, the constellations telling them what the soil could not. Plant now. Wait now. Water will come. And it did. Rain swept over the valley like a hand smoothing wrinkled fabric. Fields rose in color. Children laughed in doorways. The sky and the people moved together in time, a dance as old as breath. The scene shifted. High mountains, blue and sharp against the thin air. Travelers walked narrow paths, more silhouette than body, lanterns bobbing like fireflies. Above them, a series of stars blinked in a sequence. One, two, pause. One, two, pause, like a heartbeat. The travelers nodded to each other and turned left where the path forked. Safe passage. Elena felt a small thrill. The signal was so subtle, so gentle, and yet it had been everything. Once, the voice said, your kind could hear us as clearly as you hear each other. Not with ears alone. You heard with attention, with wonder. Elena thought of her own days. How often she filled the quiet with a screen, a song, a worry. How often she glanced at the sky without letting it linger inside her. A warm ache bloomed in her chest, somewhere between sadness and relief, like remembering a friend you haven't called in too long. Another image bloomed above, two people seated on a rooftop under dusk's violet wash. They were silent, shoulder to shoulder, palms resting on stone cooled by night. One pointed to a band of stars, and the other closed their eyes. Elena knew they were asking about love, and the sky answered not with a promise, but with a direction. Be gentle here. Be patient here. Be brave here. She felt it as a rhythm rather than a rule, a movement rather than a map. The light thinned and then gathered again, shaping a city that could have been yesterday or 1,000 years ago, because the feeling of it was timeless. Windows glowed. A baby cried and was soothed. An old man traced constellations from his window with a trembling finger. A woman paused in the middle of washing a cup because a particular star seemed to tug at her attention the way a name does from across a crowded room. These were not miracles, not in the lightning strike sense. They were smaller, kinder ones, the way a path is lit step by step so you do not fall. Then, the voice went on. The world grew louder. Elena felt the shift. The images sped up, their edges blurred by hurry. The listening thinned under the weight of noise. Machines humming, windows glazing the world, lamps erasing the darkness until the stars struggled to be seen. People still looked up, but less often, and when they did not always stay. Wonder rushed. Questions shrank to wishes, and wishes dissolved before they reached the sky. We did not stop speaking, the voice said gently. We never stop, but it became harder for you to hear. Not because you lack the ability, but because attention is a doorway, and it had gathered dust. Above, the light softened again, and Elena saw a single figure in a field, modern clothes, bare feet dug into cool soil, head tipped back, eyes closed. And in that hush, a reply found them. Not words, a feeling. The figure smiled, and the night trembled with a quiet joy. Elena realized she was crying, not with sadness, but with relief, as if something tender in her had been waiting for permission to breathe. A tear slid coolly down to her jawline. She didn't brush it away. The clearing held it like a jewel. The secret? She asked. What is the secret? The stars stilled. The constellations, those ancient patterns, gathered themselves into a single, shimmering weave. The sky felt near enough to touch. The secret is simple, the voice said. and the hush that followed was so complete that Elena felt her heartbeat as a drum in a deep hall. Every wish you make, we keep. Even the ones you whisper in the smallest voice. Even the ones you let go of when morning comes. We keep them, not as demands, but as seeds. Above her, 1,000 small lights floated downward like glowing dandelion fluff, then rose again, then drifted sideways, then vanished into the dark as if planted there. And sometimes, the voice continued, when the soil of your life is ready, we answer. Not always the way you imagine, often the way you need. Elena let the words settle, not trying to hold them too tightly. Seeds. Kept. Answered when ready. Her breath found a gentle rhythm. What about the wishes that are wild? She asked quietly. The ones that ask for more than the world can give? Even those we keep, the voice said. Because sometimes the keeping is the answer. Sometimes you do not need the thing. You need to learn how to keep longing company without letting it swallow you. Sometimes the wish is not a door to a gift, but a path to understanding. Elena nodded, though no one could see her. She felt very small and very loved. The way you feel standing at the edge of a deep ocean under a wide sky. Then, she whispered, "Why tell me now?" The star brightened a fraction, the smallest sunrise. Because you listened, it said again, and because you will carry this into your days. Not as a task, as a way of seeing. Above her, the light threaded itself into something new, fine and silver, descending like a single strand of moonlight. It lowered, lower, lower, until it hovered just above her open palm. Hold out your hand. The voice said, soft as breath. This is the part you can touch. Elena lifted her hand, palm up, steady in the cool night. The strand of light drifted down and settled there, weightless, warm, alive. It didn't shine like a bulb. It glowed like a sleeping ember, a soft pulse that met the rhythm of her heartbeat and then gently guided it slower, slower into ease. It will not burn you, the voice assured. It will warm what needs warming. She curled her fingers slightly, not to trap it, but to cradle it. It felt like holding a small miracle that had learned to be humble. The glow spread from her palm to her wrist, moving like tea heat through a mug on a cold morning. It climbed her forearm and rested above her elbow, then settled over her sternum, a quiet radiance beneath the shawl her grandmother had knit. What is it? Elena asked, overwhelmed by the tenderness of it. A remembrance, the voice replied, of listening, of being held by something bigger than any single worry, of belonging to the night and to the day, to the turning seasons, to the long story. When you feel lost, look up. When you feel small, look wide. When you feel hurried, let your breath be longer than your thoughts. The words felt like instructions and blessings at once. Elena breathed in slowly. The gift in her palm brightened a shade and then softened again, following her breath like a companion learning her steps. Will I hear you again? She asked. The question came from somewhere shy, like a child at the edge of a party asking if they can stay. If you keep listening, the voice said, you will. We do not insist. We invite. The trees around the clearing shimmered with that same kindness, their leaves silver-edged, their trunks holding the world as if it were fragile and precious. Elena looked from her hand to the sky and back again. The feeling inside her was not excitement. It was steadier than that. It was the quiet relief of being brought a lamp in a dark room, the kind that lets you find your footing without flooding your senses. "What do I do with it?" she asked, meaning the light, but also meaning everything. "Carry it," the voice said. "Not as a badge. As a lantern you don't need to wave. Let it sit where your worry sits. Let it warm what your fear has cooled. Let it be a small star inside you. When you forget, as every human forgets, look up. Your sky will remind you." Elena looked at the clearing one more time, the grass glinting with quiet jewels of dew, the crickets keeping time, the owl calling once more as if to say good night. A wind moved through, careful not to disturb the moment, only to seal it, like a gentle hand smoothing a letter before it's tucked into an envelope. "Thank you," she whispered, and the thanks rang true all the way to the edges of the dark. The star dimmed a degree, not from leaving, but from settling back into its place among its kin. The constellations returned to their ancient posture, not rigid, just restful, like people who have finished a song and are catching their breath. Elena turned toward home, and the path that had brought her here shone faintly ahead, as if the moon had tipped a little extra light onto it for her return. Each step felt different, not because the ground had changed, but because she had. The shawl around her shoulders felt heavier, not with burden, but with meaning. The night was no longer just night. It was a presence she could lean against if she needed to. At her door, she paused and looked back. The clearing held steady, patient as ever. The star flickered once, hello or goodbye, or something beyond both, and then rested. Inside, her room was unchanged. The pillow welcomed the shape of her head. Her blanket remembered the weight of her body. She slid beneath it and lay on her side, cupping one hand near her chest as if to hold the glow without squeezing it. The window framed its square of sky, and in that square, 1,000 quiet guardians kept their watch. Sleep arrived the way fog rolls over morning hills, slow, merciful, complete. The last thing she felt before it took her was that living warmth under her palm, and the certainty that she had not imagined any of it. Outside, the world turned. The night kept its watch, and the gift did what gifts do best. It asked for nothing and gave a great deal. By morning, light pooled on Elena's bedroom floor like milk poured into a blue bowl. Birds stitched the day together with their simple, cheerful threads of song. She woke with a softness in her bones, the kind you feel after a good cry or a kind word, emptied of worry, fuller of air. For a few seconds, she didn't remember. Then her palm warmed, a gentle thrum beneath her skin, and remembering arrived like a tide rolling in. Her star, the clearing, the voice. She lay there and let the remembering stretch out, unhurried. When she finally rose, everything looked the same. The cups on the shelf, the book on the chair, the thin scarf of steam lifting from the kettle. But she was not quite the same person moving among them. She reached for the cup the way a musician reaches for their instrument, aware of the quiet ceremony in the gesture. Elena carried the warmth through her day like a low, steady lamp. When a small frustration came, and they always come, she breathed longer than the thought, and the frustration found it had less room to grow. When a brief sadness arrived unannounced, and they always do, she put a hand over her chest and felt the gift answer, not with a fix, but with company. It didn't erase the feeling, It held the feeling so she did not have to hold it alone. That evening, she returned to the clearing, not to ask for more, but to say thank you with her whole self. She looked up, listened, and let silence write its calm across her mind. The star flickered once, familiar now, like a friend waving from across a room, and then settled into its quiet place in the story of the sky. And this is the part where the story folds outward, where the circle widens to include you. Because maybe, just maybe, the star did not choose Elena alone. Maybe it chooses whoever is listening when the night grows still. Maybe it is choosing you right now. In this moment where your breath slows and your shoulders soften and you feel the gentle gravity of rest pulling you towards sleep. Tonight, when you are ready, try this. Turn down the noise, even if only a notch. Let the light in your room be kind. Sit where you can see a square of sky, or close your eyes and see it anyway. Ask nothing at first. Listen the way a forest listens, without rushing, without filling the space with answers. If you have a wish, do not be afraid to make it small or to let it be wild. Place it gently in the quiet, the way you would place a note on a river. Watch it float. Know that it is kept, not as a bargain, as a seed. If you feel alone, say your name softly inside your mind and imagine the sky leaning closer, not to solve you, but to be with you. Imagine a star flickering once, just for you, and know that somewhere in the architecture of the night, attention has bent itself toward you with love. If you feel hurried, let your next breath be wider than your worry. Let the air be slow enough that thoughts have to put down their heavy bags and sit beside you for a while instead of dragging you down the hallway of the future. And if you have forgotten how to listen, and we all forget, step outside for a moment. Even if outside is a balcony, a doorway, a window cracked open to the weather. Feel the world on your skin. Let the air be air. Let the dark be dark. Let the sky be what it has always been. A patient keeper of old stories, a field of gentle lanterns that will never all burn out at once. You do not have to earn the night's attention. You have it already. Some secrets arrive as thunder. This one arrives as a lamp someone left for you on the porch, still warm from the hand that placed it there. You may carry it if you like, or you may simply sit near it and be warmed. When you are ready, close your eyes. Place your hand over your heart the way Elena did. Feel for a quiet glow under your palm. Not a light you must imagine, but a steadiness you already contain. Let that steadiness rise and fall with your breathing. Let it be enough. Perhaps you will hear your name. Perhaps you will only hear the soft percussion of your own lungs, the hush of the world wrapping itself around your home. Either way, the message remains, always the same and always new. You are part of a long and beautiful story. The sky keeps your wishes safe. The night is not empty. Listening is a home you can return to. Rest now. And if the star flickers once as you drift towards sleep, well, that is only the night saying, softly, I'm here. And as the night wrapped its quiet arms around Elena, the star's secret became a part of her, just as, perhaps, it has become a part of you. If this story touched your heart, let it travel further. Leave a like so others can find it too. And if you'd like to hear more whispers from the night sky, more tales that arrive softly at the edge of your dreams, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you'll always know when the next story is ready to be told. Until then, Keep listening. The stars might be speaking to you tonight.